Good morning, everyone. This is Corey Hinkle with your Ankerstar Wealth Daily Update. You saw it in the title. We're going to go through 10 charts in 10 minutes here to kind of give you an overview of where the market sits. And we will hit on, again, like yesterday, what we kind of expect to happen next. I'll also give you a tiny market update for today. Before I begin, I must remind you this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence before acting on anything you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and mine alone. All right, really quick, markets are down about 1/3% today. Seen some intraday volatility. The S&P, there you go, kind of leading things a little bit lower. But jump over to the S&P 500. You can see we've been in that nice little range going back to back to really September here, or October. We've been trading right there in that range. There's really nothing to draw from that. Are we at some point, we will leave this range and it will tell us some very important information. If we leave this range to the upside, then that tells us that the buyers are winning, right? Or they've won that particular battle. If we leave this range to the downside, which kind of we've done, then it will tell us that the sellers are winning. And again, that's not some long-term tell, but it is new information that we don't have yet. Now, what's worse is the Mag 7. So this is Mags. The Mag 7 have been really lagging relative to the S&P 500, particularly in 2026. Now, if you're leaning a little heavier into the technology side of things, then you might say, well, the S&P 500 is flat. My portfolio is not flat. My portfolio is down a bit. And that's because you'd be pulled down a little more than the S&P 500 due to the Mag 7 stocks out there. Now, you do see a nice bounce on the 200-day moving average here. Not that inspiring, really, but we'll see. We'll see. We'd love to see the buyers win here. If I had to guess, I do think the buyers kind of come back in and win for now in these names. These are names that people like to own. This was really interesting from, his name is Michael Cantro. So he shows, and this is exactly what's happened this year. If this is on the left side, this is the Mag 7 declining by a certain amount. And then what the other 493 stocks have to do to keep the S&P 500 flat. So if the Mag 7 declines by 5%, hint, hint, they've already kind of done that. I think potentially more than that. If they're red today, then I think they're down more than 5%. The rest of the market has to increase 2.7% just to keep the S&P 500 flat. Those Mag 7 are over something around 20 trillion in market cap, and if the S&P 500 I don't even think is at 60 trillion yet, so somewhere in the high 50s, you can see how the Mag 7 really pull the market down when they go down. The market, it can survive for a bit with the Mag 7 going down, but rest assured, if the Mag 7's down 15%, the S&P 500 is not going to be flat in that range going back to October. The S&P 500 will have given way at that point. For now, though, energy, materials, healthcare, staples, some of those have ripped so hard this year that they're kind of barely keeping the market honest, but they're not going to be able to keep the market flat for much longer if the Mag 7 doesn't turn around. Conversely, which we talked about yesterday, market's kind of flat-ish in that range. If the S&P 500 does rip back to new all-time highs, well, then you're going to have a lot of breathing room at the index level, because the Mag 7 is going to really push the market well beyond that prior all-time high. I think buyers will want to buy. Buyers want to buy the Mag 7. It's just if they've got the firepower and they've got the will to do so at this point in the face of some weakness. Bitcoin. Bitcoin a little bit resilient this morning relative if the market's down and Bitcoin's not. That's a good thing. But we called this out really early. We called out that Bitcoin was kind of guilty, real guilty here until proven innocent in the 100,000 range, somewhere in the 90s as well. And, that is still the case. This chart is still guilty at this point until proven innocent. Where do you come in? I mean, at this point, you are well below a 200-day moving average. I don't even know if that's a 200-day moving average. This might be a messed up chart, but no matter what, whether or not that is a 200-day moving average or not, you are significantly below that. And that can be a signal sometimes if you look and you're like, I'm 30% below the moving average, that takes quite a bit of selling to get there. And you can see it's been a pretty bad ride for these folks. And the buyers are somewhere. You just don't know where the buyers will come in mass. You're in price discovery mode still on Bitcoin. All right, the US 10-year. I just wanted to show this really quick. Nothing, right? We're still in that range. We did back off a bit. We were up, at 425. We're down under 4.1. So we've backed off a bit. You don't know, though, is that inflation coming down or is that skepticism about the job market? So one of those would be good. One of those wouldn't be good. So you don't know exactly what's moving this. But all in all, lower rates are a good thing for now. And the dollar, we've talked about in a couple of recent days. Again, nothing really to see here. If we broke below 96 or below 95, that would be a real that would be tough for US based stocks. And conversely, if we break above 100 here, all that international strength that you've been seeing could dissipate pretty fast at that point. So, but call it 96 to 100. That's a healthy range for the dollar to be trading in, and it still is. We talked about this one yesterday. Crude is making that push, but you're not going to see this really have an impact on inflation expectations until you decisively break above 70 on crude. So again, I mean, have we broken a downtrend? Some, not officially, no. Crude has started to spark some fears out there. I will say that. There's nothing really to act on yet here. This would be a very preliminary move. Now, those oil stocks have moved a lot. It could be signaling that the crude, the commodity, is going to follow suit. We'll see. Until we get to 70, though, not a ton to do or see there. Okay. S&P 500 valuations, PE ratios. You can see we're still in pretty rare air here. The median forward PE is not going to matter. The S&P 500 is not a median-based index, so the blue line is going to be the one that matters here. We're elevated as you think about, the context historically. We are elevated. Where does this, what does this mean, right? What does it mean when valuations get really high? Well, here's what it means. When valuations on companies get really high, it's typically not great for forward returns. You have lower forward returns when valuations are already high. You have higher forward returns when valuations are already low. But there's a cluster right here where we've had high returns and high valuations. And a lot of that cluster has happened in the last 10 years. So investors today are less concerned about high valuations than maybe they would have been in the past. And investors have gotten used to high valuations and high returns going together. That historically, hasn't always been the case. It really hasn't been the case very often at all. Historical, high valuations Low valuations were correlated with high returns, and high valuations down here on the bottom were correlated with lower returns. Now, I wanted to show you this. Check this rolling 10-year return out. So these are rolling 10-year returns. So if you see red on this chart, like in January of 1940, folks are here. In August of 1939, the 10 years leading up to that point, so from August 1929 to August 1939, you would have had negative returns on average over those 10 years. This does happen. And markets behave in cycles, right? Like waves but they take such long periods of time that people forget. Who remembers how they felt in 1939? Like basically no one, right? Who remembers how they felt as an investor in May of 1979? Not that many people, honestly. Not that many. Probably very few. Who remembers as an investor how they felt in October of 2010? A good amount, but not that many. Not that many. So, and even then, you take someone like me, my investing career started in 2009. My investing career, starting in 2009, I actually felt good during this time. So really, you would have had to been an investor to get this feeling here, January of 2010 being such a bad feeling, you would have had to been investing since January of 2000. So it's like who really, how folks today were super heavily invested in January of 2000. Again, it's a smaller portion of the population than you'd think who had enough money to really feel it at that time. So we could be setting up for a slower 10-year forward return. Again, we don't know. Investors have gotten kind of used to this other dynamic here. But anyway, that's my 10 charts in 10 minutes. If you have questions about any of those, let me know, and we'll address those. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to mention on the high valuations and returns. There are some ways you can mitigate that risk, even in the stock market, not necessarily by other assets. You can mitigate things in the stock market. If you want to talk to your advisor talk to me about that, let me know, and we'll do that. Hope everyone has a wonderful day out there. Look forward to talking to you soon.